friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. My name is Kathy and let's talk about some books. Today we'll actually be only talking about one book technically, but through that one book we'll be exploring lots of different titles. Today we'll be looking at the Penguin Classics book. So this is a book made by Penguin that's meant to give an introduction to their Penguin Classics line, like their classics lineup of various books. It is a cloth-bound hardcover book with, I believe, 480 pages. So quite a lot of content there and quite heavy. Definitely not something you would carry around. It's sort of more of a coffee table book, something that you might pull out occasionally just to flip through and take a look at and get some inspiration on what books to read. So I thought it would be kind of fun and interesting to go through it with you guys, sort of flip through and take a look. And maybe I'll find some new titles to read and you will too. Alright, and so without further ado, let's get started. So this is the contents. It is split up by time periods and then within the time periods by region. Starting with the ancient world, going through the Middle Ages, Industrial Age, and then up to the First World War. Alright, and now we're at the ancient world, starting with the Fertile Crescent and ancient China. Just know a lot of philosophy, right? The art of war. This one I am really interested in reading, The Songs of the South. Yeah, so The Songs of the South and the northern counterpart, the Book of Songs, is all of the ancient Chinese poetry that have survived. Moving on to ancient Greece. So starting off obviously with Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey. So many, right? So much ancient literature, ancient classics to read and explore. Plato. I do really want to read The Republic and the Symposium. Those are sort of higher up on my list. Right? The Art of Rhetoric here. I want to read that one. And then now we're into ancient Rome. The Nature of Things. It's a cosmic philosophical poem. Oh, that's interesting. Profoundly influenced Machiavelli, Montaigne, and Moliere. I do really like how they include the, there's like a short introduction on each author, along with some of their more well-known works that are in the Penguin collection. And then within the introductions, whenever they reference like another author that they were influenced by or they influenced, they do sort of note that, and then there's like a page number to where you can find that author or that work. So I think that's really interesting if you sort of find something that you like, and it can sort of guide you as to where to look next for similar things. On government, on the good life, on living and dying well. Virgil, well known, the Aeneid. Early history of Rome. Here we have Ovid. I am reading Fausti right now, just wrapping up. A lot of philosophers where the name is recognizable, but other than oh, I've heard that name before, don't really know anything else about. Here we have Roman Greece. Do not recognize any of these names. That's all right. That's what the book is for. Moving on to the Middle Ages. Medieval Europe. And here we have a section on history. These pages are really substantial. Makes them a little bit hard to flip. Okay, and now here we have starting fiction. First poems in English. Beowulf, longest poem that survives in Old English. Beowulf. We know nothing about Beowulf. I like that honesty. Dante, the Divine Comedy, right? Look at all of these editions. Sagas, Norse mythology, Scandinavian literature, comic sagas and tales from Iceland. Those are quite interesting. Medieval and classical Asia, the 1001 Nights in 3 volumes. India, and China. Luo Guanzhong's The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Read that earlier this year. Monkey, which I prefer the Journey to the West title. I'm not sure why Monkey was chosen, because the literal translation would be Journey to the West. Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. This one I'm interested in as well. So in total, in the original, there was 500 stories, but in the English translation, there were 104 selected. Right? Cao Xueqin, The Story of the Stone. Japan. The Tale of Genji. It's by a female author, so more interested. The other one I was thinking, is it here? The Narrow Road to the Deep North, and other travel sketches. I think this is quite, this will be really, really beautiful. Okay. Medieval Africa. There's a book of African myths of origin. Now looking at early modern Europe, starting with the Renaissance. Machiavelli, The Prince. Michel de Montaigne. His essays are quite, his collection of essays are quite well known. And I believe, according to this, look, Montaigne pioneered a new literary form. He essayed many diverse subjects, relying on nothing more than his own experience, judgment, and reading. Essays were a huge influence on contemporary and subsequent writers: Shakespeare, Descartes, Pascal, Rousseau. Here we have poetry, drama. I think there's going to be a big section on William Shakespeare. Yeah, there we go. More Shakespeare. More Shakespeare. More Shakespeare. And more Shakespeare, but then that's the end. Okay. Alright, and then we have the Enlightenment, starting with poetry. Okay, moving on to fiction. Margaret Cavendish. The Blazing Worlds. Cavendish utopian romance is one of the earliest examples of science fiction. Daniel Defoe. Yeah, Robinson Crusoe, Journal of the Plague Year. And I really want to read, so I have read Robinson Crusoe, but the next ones I want to read is Roxana, and then Mole Flanders. Right. Oh, Frances Burney is another author I have not yet read, but I do want to read Evelina. Here we have drama. All right, section on philosophy. René Descartes, A Discourse on the Method. This is on my list. David Hume, Voltaire. A Discourse on Inequality by Rousseau. He argues strongly that inequalities of wealth, power, and privilege are entirely artificial and avoidable, and wholly detrimental to the happiness of mankind. Emile, or On Education. This is interesting too. Okay, so that's the end of philosophy, or the end of the section on philosophy. Essays, letters, and memoirs. A Dictionary of the English Language, an anthology. Interesting. Now we're at the Industrial Age. Starting with Britain, the Romantics, right? Starting with poetry again. Percy Shelley. Okay, and now fiction, right? Oh, Anne Radcliffe. The Romance of the Forest was a runaway success, which they don't have here. Okay. Oh, here we have Jane Austen. Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. And in nonfiction, we have Mary Wollstonecraft, Mary Shelley's mom. Yeah, I really want to read A Vindication of the Rights of Women. The Victorians. I think this, to be honest, is probably my favorite time period of English literature. Charles Dickens. A Tale of Two Cities I really liked. Here we have Charlotte Bronte. Villette is on my list this year to read. So Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights, and a collection of poetry. Anne Bronte, Agnes Grey, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which is really good. Elizabeth Gaskell, North and South. People describe it as like a socialist Pride and Prejudice. I thought it is really good. Anthony Trollope. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot. I didn't know he wrote so many. Wow, yeah, Penguin Trollope. In 1993, Penguin published the Penguin Trollope series, 53 volumes with matching covers. That's a lot, yeah. Oh, George Eliot. This. So let's see. The ones I know about, Mill on the Floss, Silas Marner. I've not heard of Adam Bede or Adam Beatty. Honest carpenter besotted with the beautiful Hetty Sorrel. The Hetty is seduced by the grandson of the local squire with tragic consequences. Romola. Romola is the daughter of a blind classical scholar and the wife of a mysterious and treacherous stranger. As Tito's true nature is revealed, Romola must break from him and find her own path in life. Ooh, interesting. Has some Tenant of Wildfell Hall vibes. Middlemarch was amazing. very vast. It covers a lot of different things. But it's really good. Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White, the beginning of the mystery genre. The Moonstone. Mary Elizabeth Braddon. She was an actress. Lady Audley's Secret is on my list for this year. Thomas Hardy. Here we have Oscar Wilde. The Picture of Dorian Gray. And The Importance of Being Earnest. Probably the most well-known. Oh, Arthur Conan Doyle. All of the Sherlock Holmes books. H.G. Wells. A lot of science fiction, which, yeah, I haven't read a lot of H.G. Wells, because I'm not super big on science fiction. Now we have poetry, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and probably Robert Browning later. Yeah, there we go, Robert Browning. Right. Non-fiction, and we have Charles Darwin, Voyage of the Beagle, as well as On the Origin of Species, The Descent of Man. I do want to read these. More non-fiction and sort of travel, natural history type of books. Landscape with Figures, selected prose writings. Gertrude Bell, A Woman in Arabia. Interesting. Selection from her military dispatches, personal letters, diary entries, and travel writings, presenting a portrait of a forthright and spirited woman who shaped nations. This I'll add to my reading list. Mary Kingsley, Travels in West Africa. The Edwardians, right? Again, starting with fiction. E.M. Forster, which I just finished reading A Room with a View. Really liked it. So really interested in reading the rest of these. I do have Howard's End and A Passage to India already. So those are all ready for me to read. The Man Who Was Thursday. This one I have heard of, but I don't know too much about it. Oh, it's a metaphysical thriller. The Central Anarchist Council. 7 members of the council hide their identities behind code names, the days of the week. The newly elected Thursday, however, is a Scotland Yard detective, but nobody is quite what they seem in this dreamlike adventure, which Kingsley Amis considered the most thrilling book I have ever read. Oh, interesting. George Bernard Shaw. Oh, yeah, we're into dramas now. Right? Pygmalion. Heartbreak House. The company argues about the correct reasons for marriage, disagreeing about money and morality, idealism and realism. The play combines high farce and bitter tragedy in an indictment of cultured, leisured Europe before the war. Yeah, I think he's wrote so many. I think I'll delve into Bernard Shaw's plays. Maybe I'll read Metamorphoses first, and then I'll read Pygmalion. Moving into Western Europe, France. Charterhouse of Parma, I've heard lots about as well. Then Victor Hugo, Les Mis. Then we have Balzac, which there's quite a lot of. Alexandre Dumas, Jules Verne, Émile Zola. Therese Raquin, I want to read. Alright, Going into Italy, the Netherlands, Spain. Okay, that's it. Then going into Germany, The Sorrows of Young Werther. Here we have the Brothers Grimm. I like how they introduce them separately. A little bit of nonfiction here. Karl Marx, Poland, Switzerland, Austria, Sigmund Freud. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize he wrote so many books and essays. Nikola Tesla, My Inventions and Other Writings. Oh, it's an autobiography. Interesting. Oh, Rilke, Letters to a Young Poet. This one I do really want to read. And Baroness Orczy. This is on my list as well, The Scarlet Pimpernel. Denmark, Hans Christian Andersen, Fairy Tales. Okay, going into Russia, Pushkin, Eugene Onegin. This I have recently put on my list. Dostoevsky, Notes from Underground. I am interested in reading. Poor Folk is his first literary success, told through letters between an impoverished elderly copy clerk and a young seamstress. Their poverty eventually destroys their self-esteem and humiliates them both into misery. Tolstoy. These are some early works and collections of short stories, I believe. I don't gravitate towards short stories as much. I like longer novels. War and Peace, Anna Karenina. Anton Chekhov, playwright. A lot of plays. There is one that I heard of. Oh, it's not here, is it? Which is the one that I'm thinking of? Oh, I think The Cherry Orchard. Okay. And we have some nonfiction. Right, Lenin. How come there's no Bulgakov? I just read The Master and Margarita. I'm just surprised that it's not in there. Okay, moving into Asia, starting with India, right? The Philippines, Japan. So this is in the industrial age, so the 20th century. Right? Australasia, Catherine Mansfield, and then going into the Americas. Nonfiction, we have Benjamin Franklin, Henry David Thoreau, another philosopher, Walden, and Civil Disobedience. Oh, 12 Years a Slave. Oh, I.W. Wells. I want to read this one. Edgar Allan Poe. Herman Melville with Moby Dick. Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. Mark Twain. Henry James. I have heard about Daisy Miller. So Daisy Miller and the Turn of the Screw. I'll give this a try. I think I've said before, I'm not super drawn to American literature and writing, but it's just of the authors that I've read. So I think maybe the strategy now is to try and read just more authors. Maybe I'll eventually find one that I like. Henry James, The Portrait of a Lady. Yeah, it's a depiction of Isabel Archer, a spirited and wealthy American traveling in Europe with her aunt. Determined to confront her own destiny, Isabel turns down 2 eligible suitors in favor of the irresistibly charming American expatriate Gilbert Osman. Yes, I guess Henry James has quite a lot to choose from. Kate Chopin with The Awakening. This is on my list of classics to read this year. Edith Wharton, Age of Innocence, and Ethan Frome. I did like Ethan Frome more than The Age of Innocence, actually. Yeah, and I do want to read The House of Mirth. To continue. Oh, there's a little bit on Canada. Just Ellen Montgomery with Anne of Green Gables. Here we have The Caribbean, Mary Seacole. I do really want to read this. Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands. And then we're into the First World War. It's a book of First World War poetry. Alright, and that's the end. This section here I really like. It's called The Vaults. So this is basically some titles that Penguin have published as part of the Penguin Classics lineup, but they are no longer in print. I think it's nice to look through. I'm sure if you're interested in one of these, you could probably track down a copy. Alright, and that's it. So then we have the index, and acknowledgements, and that's it. That's the Penguin Classics book, full of wonderful classics to discover and read. I think it would probably take a lifetime to go through all of these books, so there's definitely enough books in here, enough content. So that's a look at the Penguin Classics book. I hope you enjoyed this flip through with me, and let me know in the comments if you discovered any new books or books that you would like to read now. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!